So we have been looking at this passage from Karl Marx's Grundrisse, and we looked at the notion of why, with a bit of discussion about Marx's humanism, and we looked at the first sentence. But if capital appears as the product of labor, the product of labor also appears as capital. No more as a simple product, not as exchangeable goods, but as capital. Objectified labor becomes mastery, has command over living labor. So we looked at until this point. So today we are going to do from it appears equally to be the result of labor. That is capital. That is that its products appear. That its product appears as alien property, an independent mode of existence opposed to living labor, an equally autonomous value that the product of labor, objectified labor, has acquired its own soul from living labor and has established itself opposite to living labor as an alien force. So generally this requires a bit about Marx's conception of alienation. It's a huge topic, but I'm just going to look at the basic of what alienation is. So generally Marx's conception of alienation is derived from that of Hegel, and I think it's directly influenced by the way Feuerbach uses it, especially in his the essence of Christianity. We looked at it in another video. And Feuerbach had said that Feuerbach basically distinguished between human beings as individuals. We looked at it, I think, in one of these videos as well. And a species. He thought that as a species, what distinguishes human beings from other animals and other creatures is its ability to have self-consciousness. So basically, it's a capacity to reason. And that wasn't a new idea. People have been saying this since Aristotle. But Feuerbach said that human beings, as a species, are infinite beings. Not as individual, but as a species. And humanity is retarded in this progress towards realizing its infinite being, false consciousness. And that false consciousness, has come about in part by its alienation from its own essence. Humanity's alienation from its own essence. That is, human beings' essence as this infinite being, rational being, free being, has become alien to human beings themselves, and they can't recognize themselves in these concepts. So one of the things which Feuerbach had said in this context was that the whole concept of God is basically an idealized version of what human beings are in their essence. And this concept is created by humans themselves. It's a creation of human beings. They have projected their own idealized self-conception. But after that, they sort of forgotten that they had created this, and they sort of hypostatized this conception of God, and they, through false consciousness, they come to believe that gods are separate beings from them, and those gods have created them, and human beings should bow to them. So they have become alien from their essence in such a manner that this conception of God, which is their own projection of their own essence, they can't recognize themselves in that conception. And they treat it as an autonomous, objectified, independent, separate entity to which they bow and all those things. So in Marx's conception, similar things have happened with the labor. So for Marx, human beings, the essence of human being is creativity. They are creators. They are gods. And that creation is manifested in labor power. That is living labor. And like Feuerbach's these humans create, produce the products. And these products are obviously their own creation, manifestation of their creativity, their mastery of nature, etc. And that's what they should see in these products. Expression of their creativity, expression of their living labor, this godlike power which creates like gods, creation in which expresses and transforms nature. And through realizing this power in these products, human beings would be expressing themselves, enjoying in themselves in their essence and their creativity. But like Feuerbach's humans, Marxist humans, that is these laborers, these workers under capitalism, has been subjected to false consciousness due to propaganda, due to ideology, also due to the working conditions, because they are working under the dominance of capitalists. So instead of realizing themselves and their essence in their products, these products, like the Feuerbach's concept of God, become autonomous, independent entities, and the living labor power becomes objectified in it, and the living labor no longer recognizes his or her creativity in these products, and it no longer sees his essence in these products because of the instrumentalization. So these products become alien to him, in the sense that instead of seeing them as expression of his creativity, they come across as independent, separate, autonomous entities, which has nothing to do with his own essence. And similarly, the man is alienated from other men as well, because of in the capitalist conditions, because he sees other human beings not as co-creators, not as co-gods, but as, similarly instrumentalized under the conditions of capitalism. And he doesn't see in them co-creators, so it can't create a community of those co-creators because of the conditions, capitalist condition, because of the instrumentalization, because of the competition, where human beings become instrument of something abstract, which is accumulation for the sake of accumulation. So this is, in a abstract manner, this is what alienation is. And alienation will be only overcome when the conditions of capitalists dominations are overcome, and capital becomes instrument of human beings rather than the other way around, through which human beings would be able to realize their creativity and their godhood, and they will be able to establish a community where other human beings would be seen as similarly as autonomous co-creators, etc. So this is, we need to look. This is a general idea, but we need to look at the concept of alienation more specifically. So we do need to look at the concept of alienation more specifically as well. But before we do that, let's go back to what we read in the text. So, but if capital appears as a product of labor, the product of labor also appears as capital. No more as simple product, not as exchangeable goods, but as capital. Objectified labor becomes mastery, has command over living labor. So living labor is that creative power which gives value to everything. It appears equally to be the result of labor, that its product appears as alien property, because he doesn't own it, so he can't consider it as he doesn't have independence as to its creation either, so he can't recognize his creativity in that product. An independent mode of existence, because it is subservient to the chain of capital accumulation, is not manifestation of his creativity or his willpower. So in that sense, it's opposed to living labor rather than its expression. An equally autonomous value, the value which has value only to the extent that it adds to the value of accumulation. So in that sense, it has an autonomous value, and it's not the expression of the value of living labor, the creativity. That the product of labor, objectified labor. So labor has become objectified in the sense in the product, but it's no longer a living labor in the sense that it is used as an object for accumulation, but it's not the expression of the creativity and fulfillment of the creativity and enjoyment of the creativity of the living labor. That's not, has acquired its own soul from living labor. So living labor, so the soul is the soul of creator is in the product, but since the product has been separated from its creator and made subservient to the chain of capital, and capital actually has become creator, that soul doesn't belong to the living labor anymore. So the god of capital as a god dominates human being as a god in that sense. So has acquired its own soul from living labor and has established itself opposite living labor as an alien force. It's an alien force because it's alien to the creative labor and living labor, because this living labor doesn't recognize his own creativity in that product anymore, because it is subservient to a different god. It's subservient to a different master, which is capital. So that's and let's finish this. Considered from the standpoint of labor thus appears to be active in the production process in such a way that it seems to reject its realization in objective contradictions as alien reality. And the contradiction is that although it is the creation of the living labor, it is actually not realized as such, but it is realized as subservient to the capital. And thus it puts itself in the position of an unsubstantial labor capacity, endowed only with the need against this reality which is strange from it and which belongs not to it but to others, that is to the capital, that it establishes its own reality not as an entity of its own but merely as an entity for others, instrument of, and thus also as a mere entity of others or other entity against itself. So I think this is just in general. It is clear once we have understood the general concept of alienation. But I feel that we need to, in the next one, we need to go to the concept of alienation in a more specific manner, through going back to Hegel and looking at the two different concepts which translate alienation. One is entfremding, which is estrangement, so alienation in that. But there's another one which is Enthouserung, which is translated as externalization and objectification. So these two elements make the alienation part. So once we look at the Hegel, these two different concepts, which are actually what makes the concept of alienation as translated in English, then we'll be able to understand alienation more specifically, and then we'll come back and finish off this. So I think we'll stop here today.